All right, that was a really, really interesting piece of music by Steven Mackey, who is here with us for a live interview. And that piece featured the amazing Gretchen Men, who is in our live stream chat right now. So thank you for being here, Gretchen. And thank you, Steven, for being here as well.
My pleasure, Anthony. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so you and I met at Gretchen's request
Mhm.
and have exchanged some information, but this is our first time really getting to talk and know each other, which is great. I actually love these kind of interviews because it gives the viewer a real chance to see who you are. So tell us about you, your background. I know you have a really extensive musical history, lots of accomplishments, lots of awards. But for someone, driving by who's like, who's this Stephen Mackey guy? Can you give us a
Yeah.
drive-by description?
Yeah, well, I started playing guitar as a kid in Northern California. I was a rock guitarist and started to get into fusion and, Mahavishnu orchestra, that kind of thing. And I was a burning, when I see Gretchen play, it reminds me, I was a burning, shredding guitar player at 18, and now I'm a feeble old man next to people like Gretchen. But as my musical journey progressed in my teen years and into college, I took a music appreciation class, which is the first time I'd ever heard any classical music. And I didn't know how to read music. I was 20 years old, and I heard, Stravinsky Rite of Spring and late Beethoven string quartets and all this, what to me sounded like the most psychedelic rock music I'd ever heard. Right. This is in the early 70s. And At the time, my band was, getting some rejections, which kind of hurt. I remember one rejection said, your band's really tight, but your originals are really weird and hard to dance to. And then I hear Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which is actually a ballet. It's way weirder than what I was doing, and people dance to it. So I thought maybe I should explore that world, and that was whatever 40 some years ago, and I became a composer. I was luckily I was silly enough to not believe anybody when they told me it was too late to be a composer. So I started studying music. Repressed my guitar background, didn't play guitar for a decade until I got out of graduate school as a composer, and nobody was paid to be interested in my music anymore as a teacher. So I started to pick up the guitar just as a way to get my body involved in music again, and that really, this was before anybody else was doing it. This is in the early 80s, mid 80s. People weren't writing music for string quartet and electric guitar and orchestra and electric guitar. And I started doing it again, naively thinking, well, this would be a cool idea. I got a lot of resistance, but also got a lot of attention for it. So that sort of became kind of the first calling card of my career. It's like the weird guy that plays electric guitar with string quartets in classical concert halls.
Yeah, and I listened to some of those pieces. You have a real natural way of blending in and standing out. I really appreciated that you could sound like part of the orchestra when it was needed, and then other times you stood out. Um, but before we
That
get
was one. Oh, I
on,
was just going to say that one thing I think I've really improved as a guitar player, not in the shredding direction, but just in the way you're talking about. I think when I first started playing with orchestras and string quartets, I was like, the cliche Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, just coming over and blowing on top of everybody. And it took me a while to really learn that what you're talking about, how to move in and out of the ensemble.
yeah, we had Lyle Workman on. Are you familiar with Lyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked to him about his new album, which is really another fantastic blending of orchestra and electric guitar. And then we had Daniele Gotardo, who I know is a friend of yours as well. You guys have
Mhm.
collaborated on some pieces. So I'm really glad to see the electric guitar becoming, I don't know, a little more welcome in orchestral music or,
Yeah.
classical music.
Well, I like to say, when I started doing it, it was like this weird, I was a heretic. And now happy to say you can't throw a dead chicken without hitting an electric guitar player in a contemporary music ensemble. When
Yeah.
I was coming up, it was like flute, clarinet, violin, cello, and piano. And now every new music group worth their salt has a guitar player.
Gretchen is saying that you are a huge part of why the wall has been kicked down, and I think that's great.
Yeah,
So thanks for doing
thanks.
that. Tell us about that piece that we heard, Moon Landing. It's not on YouTube, so when I got the video, I was surprised, like, why can't I find this
That's
anywhere?
the first time anybody's heard it. I hope Gretchen's not mad at me for releasing it. So that was the world premiere, but we're going to call it a preview, so we can still do a world premiere.
Good.
When COVID hit, um, a fellow in Germany, Heiko, put together. He had invited me to come to Hamburg and work with his guitar students, and then it was canceled by COVID. And we thought, well, let's form a group where we can collaborate and do stuff. So we called ourselves Another Night on Earth. And after me, Gretchen was the third person that we invited. And we had to make some music. And I was a big fan of Gretchen. And so the first thing I ever did for Another Night on Earth was to write this piece for Gretchen and I to play together. It's called Moon Landing because I also had a project coming up to write a short opera about the visit of the Apollo 11 astronauts to have tea with the Queen of England. So I wrote an opera about that, and I just kind of wanted to get into the moon. I've always been into the moon stuff. I mean, when I was in sixth grade, it was before the moon landing, and all my oral reports were about the moon landing and the science involved. So this was just another excuse to work with Gretchen and to get some lunar imagery in my music.
That's great. I love it. So I don't mean to impose, but it looks like there's a Grammy up above your shoulder on the shelf behind you.
Right there. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, tell us where that came from. What'd you do?
Well, let's see. I mean, I covered my face in a ski mask and I snuck in there. No, I worked with this group called Eighth Blackbird. It's a kind of a classical music, contemporary classical music ensemble, and I wrote a big piece called Lonely Motel, and we recorded it, and it won a Grammy.
That's impressive. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple more pieces. This next one is called Stalactites. I'm gonna get the stupid Zoom screen sharing thing going. So maybe you could just talk a little about this piece while I get that screen stuff set up.
Sure. Well, I had the idea. I wanted to write a big, giant piece for. So originally it was solo electric guitar, and then it became solo electric guitar and percussion. And then I thought, well, let's make this a theatrical piece. So it's a big 75-minute piece. It's the most adventurous and ambitious thing I'd ever done for the electric guitar, particularly in terms of like the orchestration, all the pedals. When I practice this piece, practicing, hitting the looper on, looper off, octave on, harmonizer, distortion, whatever, it's all really very tightly timed in. This is one little, I think, 3-minute excerpt. And the piece is called Orpheus Unsung, and it follows the Orpheus myth. Just in a nutshell, Orpheus is a great, musician and hero. He gets married to Eurydice. On their wedding night, she gets bitten by a snake and dies, is taken to the underworld. Orpheus can't accept that. He travels to the underworld to beg for her release. I just imagine traveling to the underworld would be a kind of a trippy experience. So this is a piece that's kind of my version of traveling through the underworld to save Eurydice.
All right, let's take a watch or a listen. Take a listen and a look. I don't know.
Both. Yeah, do it all.
Yeah, we'll do everything. All right, that was almost terrifying.
Well, you should be terrified. You're on your way down to see Hades. It's just
I've been there, done that. No, what a great exploratory piece. Love all the different ways you use the guitar. One thing I loved about the moon landing piece, and I meant to ask you about, and I'm reminded in this one, it sounds almost like you're doing microtonal stuff on the guitar, or like your strings. I mean, you're not using a microtonal neck, so are you tuning the strings a few cents apart?
The D string is tuned halfway between an F and an F sharp.
Quarter step, okay.
Yeah, well, 3/4 a step from the D string, so that gives you a step and a quarter, or 3/4 of a step between the D string and the G string, and that interval is just like it's an awesome, crazy, wrong sounding interval, and so then that becomes the kind of the tuner for everything else. I can bend or harmonics or whatever to get to have consistent microtones.
Oh, it's really great. It was hard to tell if it was a pedal effect. I mean, it sounds like you have a chorus and some sort of pitch shift.
I have an octave, and I also have a pitch shifter, which a pedal that.
Okay. Yeah. That was a really awesome piece there. Tell us about your composition process. I mean, do you write the same way for whatever the the performance is going to be, whether it's an orchestra or guitar and drums, or do you write specifically for how it's going to sound, or what?
I would say 99 times out of 100, it starts with the guitar. It starts with me, in my basement practicing the guitar. I've got a lot of music at this point that I've written for guitar that I perform, and I know it really well. I mean, I've got some of these pieces, old pieces that are 30 years old for a string quartet and electric guitar. I've performed 300-400 times, and I've saying they're memorized is an understatement. But you still, if I'm spending a lot of time doing other things, composing, orchestrating, I still need to get my timing, get the calluses back. So I have to practice, but practicing the notes of the piece that I'm going to play gets boring after 20 minutes. So I just start improvising. And if I stumble off onto something cool, I turn on my, phone recorder, record it. And I hate the blank page. Nothing worse in the world than a blank page. So whenever I'm starting a new piece, I comb through all my files and find something that's cool and use that as a starting point. Just the way Beethoven would have used the piano, just a little improv. Oh, I'm going to develop that. Then I take all my years of training and, hopefully a teaspoon of talent, and take that, put it into an orchestral context. In fact, a good example is I have a piece being premiered by the Boston Symphony in a couple months. I just finished it, but all the material comes from these etudes. I think you're going to play one of the etudes as the last cut. And again, this is the beginning of COVID. I didn't really know for sure whether that piece for the Boston Symphony was going to happen, because it was postponed, canceled. And I thought, maybe it's never, maybe this will be a good excuse for them to exit altogether. So I said, I'm going to do something that will be meaningful to me, write these studies for the electric guitar. But in the back of my mind, I knew this material that I'm working on for electric guitar will be this piece if it gets resurrected. And it did get resurrected. And the next thing you're going to play is actually shows up fully orchestrated.
That's awesome. So before we play that, we're getting close to the end here of our time together. But first of all, Daniele Gottardo joined the live stream, and he said, you need to teach him how to play microtonal. Because Daniele is not good enough at everything else he does on the guitar.
Yeah, I sometimes, with my 13-year-old son who also plays the guitar, just for fun, when we're driving, I'll put on some Daniele piece, and our jaws just drop. It's like, is that really the guitar, or is that some kind of crazy, steroid-driven keyboard?
Yeah, I Make Weird Music does have a TikTok account, and I don't follow many people there, but it just shows me Daniele and like one or two other people. And now I understand why people feel bad when they use social media.
Yeah, I know. I definitely felt many times when I listened to both Gretchen and Danielle, like, I got to change my major. I'm just very thankful
Right.
that I'm a composer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they're both awesome. Super,
yeah,
super cool. I don't know if you got to see the piece that Gretchen and I recorded together. It's kind of like a jazz Pat Metheny,
awesome.
Mahavishnu kind of thing. I'll send it to you.
Okay, want to hear it.
Anyway, so yeah, in our last couple minutes, how can people support you and the music that you make?
Well, I guess they could go. I've got a new CD, an orchestral CD coming out. Um, that music is all, again, like I've said before, all started with the guitar, but the guitar is nowhere to be found in the music. It's all for orchestra. The name of the disc is called Beautiful Passing, and it's on a label called Canary Classics. It's going to be released on December 9th. They can follow my Instagram, get all the news they want to get. And they can go to Apple Music. Go to Apple Music. There's 13, 14 CDs that I've made. Half of them have me on guitar, half of them are for classical ensembles, and go and pay 99 cents and download a track.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, so right down here in the corners of the screen, we've got stevenmackey.com, and then here is Steve's Instagram handle, so go follow him on social media. And yeah, check out his work. Just search on YouTube and definitely listen, because there's a huge variety.
On YouTube, there's a lot of unauthorized recordings of other people playing my music and groups. They didn't say, "Hey, is this cool?" So I don't know what you're gonna get. I know if you go to studio recordings, like to Apple Music or Spotify, you'll get composer approved renditions. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I would encourage people to check out some of the stuff that doesn't have electric guitar, because everybody in the classical world that hears my stuff that doesn't have electric guitar says, wow, the orchestration sounds like there's an electric guitar in there. So it might be interesting to some of your guitar lovers.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, before we go, I want to remind people, if you click the like button on this video, that tells the YouTube algorithm people need to hear about Steven Mackey. So I'd appreciate it if you click that. We don't monetize our interviews or anything. It's really about shining the light on great artists. So yeah, tell the algorithm that people need to hear more of this stuff. And then secondly, we have a join button down below the YouTube video player that's for our Club Weird membership. It's $3 a month. It really helps me out. Like, I had to buy a new hard drive, and and the only way I could afford it was by helping a friend rewrite a resume. And things break and fail, and Make Weird Music literally ran out of money last month, so my wife wasn't happy that I had to transfer some cash. So yeah, musicians, that's how they roll. So anyway, yeah, please follow Steven. Please hit like. Please subscribe, and consider hitting the join button for Club Weird. And we are going to queue up. I got mosquitoes in here. Sorry.
So yeah, this was done at the beginning of COVID. Just one take with an iPhone in my basement.
All right, let's see if I have it right.
Hi, my name is Steven Mackey, film crew.
All right, gonna share the screen now.
Hi. You don't have to watch the outtakes.